What's going on, Sanctuary? Theory has arrived. Before we get started, a genuine thank you to all tuning in live, and for many of the followers over the last 48 hours, such as Smitty, Mr. Biggie, and The Alchemist, just to name a few. For those unable to join today, I will be posting this broadcast as a VOD on my YouTube. I don't know about you beautiful souls, but I'm feeling energized today. We're officially 48 hours out from Resurrected ladder launch, and 2.4 is now in the wilderness. I will be actively broadcasting here on my Twitch, grinding through hardcore with the homies, my hardcore day ones, as we race to Hell Bale Thursday night. Tune in as we save Tristram. But the real reason we're all here today is not for me. Let's get serious. None of you really came here for the Renegade Master. No. We're all here to listen to the distinguished man of the hour, Sir Teebling, the legend across the pond. Teebs and I will navigate the 2.4 world, major updates to D2IO, and closing us out with an active community discussion through live Q&A. Let's get this thing started and dive right into the deep end of Resurrected. How's it going, Teebling? Good to see you, man.
Hi, everybody. You can see a couple of familiar names in chat, so nice to see you all here, and yeah, looking forward to this video.
Yeah, likewise. It's crazy to think, Teebling, that the last time that we did this was about 7 months ago. Thanks, Drimbus, for the follow, man. And yeah, I mean, we were at, or I should say you were at, for your site, right? We were at 400 followers. It was great to kind of see what you had built and kind of the impetus of why you built it. You gave some background on it, but congrats to you first and foremost. If I'm not mistaken, last I checked, you're close to 73,000 now, if I'm not mistaken. So just a personal, huge congratulations to you, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like 70,000 now. I'd say probably like, I don't know, maybe 15,000 are actually active. But it did kick off. Got a lot of people joined sort of around launch time. So yeah.
So before we kind of dive into a couple things, as we kind of do our fun little preamble, I thought a group can kind of get to know you personally. Obviously, a lot of people seeing you for the first time here. I think a lot of people have organically discovered D2IO. Obviously, your name is starting to get some moat and clout in the community, which is exciting for you. But you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you're willing to share. How old are you? Where do you live? Maybe what got you into developing. Thought it'd be nice for the community to hear.
Yeah, sure. So as you can probably tell from the accent, I am from the UK. I was born and bred in London, North London. I'm 30 years old, turning 31 tomorrow. It's my birthday.
Happy early birthday.
Actually, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I still feel about like 18 in terms of like, kind of like how I think and stuff. It's just crazy to think I'm turning 31. Never thought that would happen. As for developing, well, I kind of started like started making community websites for Blizzard games a while back. I had all these different Diablo 2 forums that I tried to get up and running, but they eventually failed for one reason or another. And then I was getting into World of Warcraft Classic. When that got announced, I was like massively hyped because I never got to experience the original game. And I thought, oh, well, why don't I start making some websites again? So I made this website called Baron's Chat. It was, again, another PHPBB forum, just like this one. And I think it got like 4,000 members. So it was pretty small, but it was like my first success, and kind of got me into development and thinking about what I wanted to do next. And then there are all these rumors going around, as I'm sure you guys will remember, that D2 HD, it might happen, that this remastered version of D2 was in the works. And this was like before the original announcement, so I thought straight away, I was like, right, like I want to make a good Diablo 2 site, so this is my chance. And yeah, I started drawing and coming up with some ideas, and then coded the site, made the Discord. A couple of people in chat today were there, like right at the beginning when that happened, and yeah, and it just sort of like took off from there. So yeah, that's how I ended up making this website, I guess. It's just always loving Blizzard games and loving the Blizzard websites as well. Like Ariat Summit was a huge inspiration. So
That's awesome, man. I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing all that. I mean, I guess one thing before I transition into some general commentary on because some thoughts on 2.4 and a lot of the kind of pot stirring discussions of our D2 community that loves to dissect everything left and right. What have been just from your experience with D2IO, just for those that are developers that aren't developers, what has been some of the challenges with obviously maintaining the site, kind of growing in its popularity? I think you've always been very open and transparent in your forum posts, your dev posts, right? You kind of try to expose as much as possible, but to use the kind of proverbial what keeps you up at night, what's kind of been some of the positives, but also the challenges with the Diablo 2 IO experience?
yeah, well, I guess the challenge was just how many people got involved. So I remember on launch day for the game, there was like 500 people online, which was by and far like the biggest numbers we'd seen on the site. It was typically like 50 online or something like that. Um, and then the game released, and at the same time, Google's algorithm fortunately placed me at number one for like Diablo Trade, Diablo Database. I got this huge up ranking on Google. And so as soon as everybody started searching for this stuff, my site was at number one. So I went from having 50 people online to having thousands online. So that was a huge challenge. I had to commission new servers. I had to commission new servers 3 times, and went through a lot of hell with just having too much stuff to deal with. We got DDoS at some point. It was all completely crazy. It was a real commotion. So yeah, I guess that was a big challenge, was just trying to scale things and go back and rewrite a lot of code, because the code was the main problem. Was the fact that I hadn't really thought about this thing being used by that many people. So the code ran super slowly and the server just bottlenecked. Yeah, so that was hard, but I had a lot of help from people, actual professionals who volunteered to help, and they pointed out some things to me, and got it rolling from there. I guess one of the positive things was, yeah, just like the massive like outpouring of passion for the game, and people wanting to see a website like the one that I'd created. Yeah, that was a huge positive. Yeah,
I love it,
nice seeing
man.
it grow.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, as you call that, I see, Keegan, Billy, Shadow, obviously Dan most recently helping you with some Google stuff. Yeah, it's definitely been a very community feel. And I think thinking back to our last discussion, that's what motivates and drives you, Teebling, right? It's about the community. You're very objective about other sites, and I think that's something that we'll talk through a little bit in the Q&A, right? About other trade sites out there, obviously other destinations out there. You're not very ego driven, knowing you in our discussions together on the side about it's only about the ascension of Diablo 2 IO, right? You are about all boats and the rising tide for the community, which I always appreciated. So yeah, look, I'm looking forward to transition into the next, where we're going to dive into a live look into Diablo 2 IO. A little bit different from the first time we did it. Obviously, that was me kind of navigating its general overview in the form and function, but Teebling and the teams have been very busy launching a new trade marketplace with an extensible amount of awesome features, all feedback from the community. The product's only as good as the feedback, and thanks to all of you for giving that to Teebling and Co. I think Teebling, if I'm not mistaken, you certainly were possibly the first, if one of the top to speed to market with the D-Clone tracker, which we're going to get into, and you recently opened up an API. So again, folks can kind of pull the data and help automate that for their own communities. But for me, right, the big thing is 2.4. We're 2 days away, like we talked about. I think that, unfortunately, I would say as a personal 20-year fan, right, they created some alienation between ladder and non-ladder. Obviously, making the rune words and certain uniques and a lot of the recipes and the Pandemonium event now available in ladder. And I think you had a couple people had polls on your site, and it was interesting to see the power players by proxy kind of vote on what they're going to do. And I think the latest numbers I saw was 50% were going to remain in softcore non-ladder, 50% were going to play softcore ladder, and then always the outliers of the group, us over on hardcore. I think we represented 9% of the player base, but as I have kind of experienced, most hardcore players stick to ladder. they don't tend to play hardcore. I think there was one vote for hardcore non-ladder. So I think we'll dive into that. And look, in D2IO, the team got a lot of things cataloged and updated with 2.4 data, which we're going to show you, including both on items, the recipe upgrades for sets, but of course also the areas. So a lot of good stuff going on. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So for those that haven't seen this, a fun call to action, feel free to head over to Diablo2.io, or if you keystroke in exclamation point D2IO, you'll get the hyperlink directly in chat. It's very easy to sign up. Would love you to participate in the community that Teebling has built. As you can see here at the top, we kind of gave this a teaser, but an extensive amount of posts and activity in the forums. Obviously, you can see the amount of people online and the totality of members. Just really some awesome stuff. But without further ado, we want to head over to the brand new and heavily upgraded trade marketplace. So, Teebling, I'm going to do some navigating like we talked about, but before we get going, would love you to kind of talk through this a little bit. It's changed its form and function a lot over the last 7 months. You want to share a little bit about what you've been focused on here?
Yeah, no, it'd be my pleasure to. So yeah, I've done a lot of work on the trade marketplace. It sort of went through like 2 or 3 different major rewrites. The first one coming in, I believe it was November last year, and then another one more recently. So I've just been trying to add things that people ask for, really. You know, they go to the sub forum, the feedback forum, and they say, why isn't this filter here, or why can't I do this, or like it would be so cool if we could do this, X and Y and Z or whatever. So I go there and just try and build what people want, pretty much, things that they've requested. So yeah, you're looking at the trade sort of like portal page. So we've got little widgets there now to be able to access the search, the price check, and the browsing tool. Just to make things a little bit easier for like people on ramping. You know, a lot of people land on this page the first time they visit, so we just want to get them straight into a bit of trading activity there. The graphs are new. You guys might have noticed there's graphs everywhere now. I kind of went a bit crazy in OD on that, but that one on the homepage, just the amount of trades that have gone through the market, it's like the volume of total trades. As you've done there and you click through to the trade stats page, there's a little bit more detail in the graph. You can see sort of different platforms and modes.
Yeah, I think I think one of the things here, and yeah, you showed me this earlier. I actually totally missed this. So obviously, PC, as you can see, right, totally dominates the typical amount of trades when we're thinking platforms. But if you toggle this off, you can actually start to hone in on a time period a little bit more. So if we want to look at kind of more recent behavior, very adaptive graph here, right, where you can kind of see, hey, looking across consoles and especially hardcore, not surprisingly, right, a much kind of different activity of the forum. But yeah, it gives you a little bit of cool quirkiness. And I love that you added the tick here for kind of 2.4 and obviously prior to that, because as you and I have been kind of sidebar hypothesizing, obviously I think that you're going to see some distinction in the economies. And that's almost a good segue into this. Like, first of all, I love that you post this. Again, I think a keyword of Diablo 2.io is transparency. Clearly, you are highlighting top traders, most sold items, and I think the often controversial topic, and a lot of people have very strong advocacy and opinions of this, which is what is the anchor currency? Is it an ist rune, right? Is it a mid rune, right? Is it P gems for certain item classifications? Right? I feel like it's all over the map, but yeah, again, I think it was Shadow I was talking to. I think he's here in the chat. It's interesting, right? It took what 300 days to get to 2.4, the first patch in 10 plus years, to get to a ladder. So more or less now you've had a year of just a flood of supply of item types, of rune bases, of torches, and obviously the new Annie mechanics. And so for those staying in the softcore economy, it's going to be very fascinating because to some degree, right, until the first season comes and all those items transition, and really the only thing coming in, if I'm not mistaken, everybody can keep me honest in the chat, but I'm pretty sure it's just 2.4 rune words are really the only thing that is gating now ladder outside of doing the ascension and seeing yourself rise up on the ranks. It's really just 2.4. So I'm curious, Teebs, I don't know what you think, but obviously this site is great because we can kind of pay attention to it.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see kind of what items are going to start selling a bit more in ladder and what aren't. My prediction is that, all these low-level uniques that, nobody wants nowadays because it's really late in the season, I think those are going to start selling again, which is nice, because that's nice for new people coming into the game as well, when they feel they've got a bit of value um, with the things they find maybe in Nightmare or Hell mode. And yeah, I reckon that liquidity probably stay the same, like ifs and pulls and lems and stuff like that. Still going to be used a lot in exchanges. And we might see a bunch of new people come active on the site as well, or some of those top blokes. I mean, Draconics, he's almost 800 trust there. I think he might make a return
Mm.
and play for ladder. As for like ladder and non-ladder, like we polled this for a couple of months, but and what we found was like always a pretty much 50-50 even split between people saying that they were going to play non-ladder or ladder, right? But I think that might be a little bit misleading because the site has a bit more of like a hardcore audience. So I reckon a lot of casual people are going to come back and they're going to play the hell out of ladder. So
100%.
I reckon that will be the most dominant game mode I think moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. And, for those wondering, we are going to dive into a little bit about this, about some of the activity numbers and also the trusted trade. When you had, again, going back 7 months, you had just launched trade for the first time, you had released a patch. I think the idea of the trust and was really kind of early in its infancy, and obviously this was critical just because being able to eradicate obviously BM traders, scammers, this is a huge thing. And there's also a new squelching feature that to foreshadow that will also showcase for the audience and for those that couldn't make it. So I'm going to actually show some of the cool new features, and Teebling and I can kind of talk through this. And so I think that one of the things here was browse trades. And I think one of the biggest things Teebs and Co pushed out was the multi-filtering concept. And so um, obviously, when you come here and you build your profile, when you are posting your own trades, if you say I'm hardcore, I'm ladder, I'm PC, I'm an America's player, from a quality of life perspective, it does automatically default to those settings. So you don't have to actually go through. Obviously, for some of this, you do need to kind of classify, but let's just do a quick example. If I want to look at softcore, obviously, I want to look at PC, we're talking ladder. One of my favorite ones that Teebling added is online. So there's nothing more painful when you're trying to sell an item and when you're trying to buy an item and the user is offline in the forum. And so this is also a neat way that if you happen to code beyond, it can help filter out. But here I want to say I want to look at a superior 4-socket base. And so you can kind of see what I have here. I'll say I want to buy online. You see a couple of these things. And also you can add keywords here. So for example, if I wanted to say dusk in titles, and I query this, maybe I'll have to go back and look at, let me take off online and see if that works. Oh, there we go. Okay. So in this case, you can see, right, 2 days ago, Diamond 5 posted a dust shroud, want to buy in this case for open socket 15 dusk, right? Kind of gives an insight into the offer. So you can see here, it's as always pretty intuitive, very fast to kind of navigate these filters. So really helps you hone in on exactly what you guys are looking for. Anything else you wanted to highlight on this one, Teeps?
Yeah, well, this is just like a highly requested thing because the search that I built was really rubbish, and people were having a really hard time finding items, especially the fact that like you had to use a keyword, so like you had to know what you were looking for, right? Like you had to know that oh, I'm looking for a 4-socket dust shroud, but now you can actually just go there, like filter by item type, body armor, and then you can see all the body armors, and then you can add a 4-socket filter, and you can add other filters on top of that. So it's just a bit easier to kind of like discover stuff now than it was before. And yeah, looking at the analytics, like people are split between using the search and the browse about 50-50. So yeah, no, that was a good feature coming up. And like you were demonstrating there, you can turn a browsing filter set, you can turn that into a search as well. And so that's kind of nice if you're looking for particular keywords within descriptions and stuff like that. So yeah, I was happy with this feature, and I think people like it.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think search trades again. It's kind of a similar function. I think one of the things that's really cool here is like if we think about a torch, for example. So if I go here and I say, hey, I want to dig into the class, obviously here, if we're looking at item type, or I can go to the rarity rather, right? There's obviously crafted. You can kind of see where this is coming from. You can see also player services in the event you needed help with, obviously D-Clone if you needed help killing the Pandemonium event, obviously to get a torch. But if we come in here, we look at, let's say, large charm, rarity, and go to unique, and again,
You're gonna add a keyword for that one because you're in the search.
oh yeah, I
So
was
it's gonna
blanking
put
out.
you.
Yeah, of course. That's of course what I'm looking for, and I'm blanking out. There it is. There you go. So yeah, you can quick
That's all
search,
right.
ignore filters. Obviously these are my custom filters, so I do full search using the config. See, let me undo this actually. I realize that I don't really need that. There you go. So, obviously here we just isolated Sorcerer's Torch and it was very easy, right? So obviously the form is whittled with torches, but just through those two quick meta kind of inputs, right? Quick classification, easy to search, easy to find. Very similar to the kind of browse trades economics.
Yeah,
So
no, it's pretty similar. You've got to be careful not to apply too many filters because the filters work on and logic, right? So the more filters you add, like the more refined the search gets.
yeah, and
That catches
that's
a lot of
you saw
users off
exactly
by
what
guard.
you saw exactly what I did there. And again, like you can click down here, run a new search really fast. You can reset the configs. There are some quick ways to kind of undo it as if you kind of run into the issue that I did there. I'd say one other cool thing to get into is the price check. It kind of does, obviously, to your point. It goes with the overall statistics of the page. But obviously, if we're looking at a Shaco, for example, right, there's two things here. You can look at just the historical prices overall, but there's also the recent prices, which I think is great because obviously from a recency perspective, right, the market changes, as you know, especially as you're on early ladder and you kind of get in, or again, for non-ladder, the recency might not be as applicable because it's obviously whittle. But if I go in here and I said, hey, let's look at historical prices, again, you kind of have a nice nifty little graph here. You can kind of understand the volume and movement of Shakos in the marketplace. Still, you have your filters here again if you want to isolate, but this kind of gives you a sense of what is the market obviously pricing. What's the supply and demand economics? And it looks like on the average, right? If I'm just kind of spot checking this again, we're kind of looking over in this midsection here, more or less going for an ist a little bit higher. It looks like some people were willing to let it go a little bit easier for a pull or an umrune in some cases, right? But I think this is where this is really cool. And also things that we didn't get into in like the search, but like if you want to get very specific towards a lightning skiller, right? Obviously having a sorceress being the player type for that type of charm, I think that's keep me honest here, but I think especially the more semantic you get into like charms and jewels, it's not your typical rune word. It's not your typical unique, right? Where it starts to get a little bit more complex in the statistics and the variance for what you're looking for. I think it really does a great job using the filters and keywords for things like charms, especially. Is that what you've also seen? I feel like you've given some good feedback on that.
Well, kind of like charms, magic, and rare items, pretty much untradeable before like the second last patch. And then I added some stuff in so that they basically just act like keywords. So you can price check charms. You can list magic items and stuff like that as well. What most traders find is that actually Tradery is much better for this because in Tradery you've got granular filters and you can say like I want exactly 10% MF and it's a little bit more intuitive. So for people who are looking like for really high-end magic and rare items, you want to use Tradery for that. The site here has, as you can see, has had some features added to it. I mean, if you went and price checked, for example, Sparkling Grand Charm of Vita, that's a small charm, it's a magic charm, but you'd be able to get a lot of price results just for that. So yeah, no, the support's been added for it. The price check thing is like, I think the coolest thing about the site, right? Because um, unlike written guides, it's like kind of always up to date because it's always receiving you data from people's trades. Like whenever they mark a trade as complete, then they put the items in that they sold it for. So that's kind of nice that we build up this history pretty much from launch for what items are going for. And I'm hoping that will show through when ladder starts because people are going to be very, very confused about pricing when it comes to ladder. Like a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this guy's trying to rip me off because he's asking for like one rune more than it says, and it's going to be quite a turbulent time. There'll be a lot of contention in listings because of that. So hoping that the price check tool will be will be a nice solution.
Yeah, and to close this section item, we'll kind of get into more of the profile centric trade stats. I know Hoost, a heavy trader, wrote a really great guide, especially for those that aren't used to the site, but also just trading elements and fundamentals in general, right? Tips for selling, how to take full advantage of a lot of the features on the site, why the trust and credibility scoring is so important. So, Billy Udrid and everybody, right? We'll show it in a little bit in the forums, but there is some really strong member guides that are sticky, the top kind of tool tips and tricks of the site. So you guys have done a really good job surfacing information to make it discoverable and easy. So for those that are newly experienced or want to trade and not use the fun D2 JSP and the pixel currency, and they want to bring it back to more in-game trading or Discord trading or tradery, as you called out, I think that's important. And on that, right, there's been a couple times people asked you in the forums about cross trading, right, or cross progression of trading, and I think there was some confusion over. It was frowned upon, and if you're going to post in D2IO marketplace, don't go post in tradery and vice versa. And I think that's like a big misnomer that we tried to all demystify openly, right, and keep me honest on that in your own opinion. But that's the point, right? It's like you can post multiple times. There's no gating. There's obviously no political issues, right? I mean, you're very open to your community. And if that means that you can get the trade done on Tradery, then great. If you can get it here on D2IO, then awesome, right? It's more about moving volume in the best way that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually speak with the developer of Tradery quite often. He's a nice chap, and we get on extremely well, and we keep up with each other, what we're doing, in the background and stuff. So I've got nothing but respect for Tradery and the marketplace there. And that's why in our sort of guides and resources section, right, it's not gated. Like we don't ever say like, oh, you can't post about this site or you can't advertise this site. People just post what's useful for D2 players, and that's how we want to keep it.
100%. Well, it's an extension of trade, but we want to show you some interesting stuff that's actually now nested in the member section. So up here, some might not know, but obviously you can kind of toggle down here to do more of a deep link search. And so we're going to do an example here for Geo89. So as we kind of navigate to his profile, you're going to notice a couple cool things here. So Teebling and Co. built what is called a stash system. So kind of a play on the shared stash, obviously in 2.4. This is a great way for any trader to very meticulously, but also cleanly categorize and catalog your specific trade. So as you can see here, Geo, it's very clean and simple. He's got a set unique, magic rares, etc. And within each of these, for his own sanity as well, for him to personally track all of his trades in the wild, he can quickly navigate through each of these and understand his want to sell, want to buy situations and kind of what he has. So it's a really, really awesome feature that Teebling and the co added. I personally just customized mine now that I'm going to be back for ladder. I wasn't doing much trading over the last 6 months, but I will definitely be taking full advantage of this as a way to categorize. And when you also are posting a trade, by the way, one of the fields will ask you, do you want to link or associate this specifically to one of your stashes to keep it clean?
Yeah, for sure. It was a fun feature to build, and people wanted it. A bit of customization. So that was a fun addition. And we also added like a trader history section, so you can see like all the trades that you listed. You can see all of the completions there with what you sold it for and everything, and your own graph too. So if you look in the little trade stats block just underneath that green graph, there's a button that says trader history, and you can click on that, right? It's kind of nice to see like an overview of your wealth building, really, because that's what a lot of people do. They come on the site, they start off with like perfect gems or like low runes, just like random crafting materials that you can get. And then after a couple of weeks, they're trading high runes and stuff. So people like being able to see their own progression in the trader history. So yeah, and that was like one of my favorite things to build for this patch.
Yeah, this is super cool. Yeah, because if anybody wants to dive in and kind of dissect their own behaviors or go back and look at history, and it's obviously very easy to navigate all this, very kind of eye friendly and color coded. This is super cool, man. Love that you built all this stuff. Um, Before we move on to another example, I wanted to go back to GU89 because you saw at the top, those that saw this is the squelch button. So you can kind of see as I hover over it what this is. I'll kind of give my take on this. But look, we've all experienced some level of toxicity in the D2 community. I think D2IO's community is truthfully a very complimentary, very welcoming place. But everybody has those kind of BM traders, and there are always those that try to hijack trades or posting in your own threads. And so I love that you added this Squelch feature because as it reads here, Squelch is this trader making their offers on your trades invisible to anyone except themselves, being that if you wanted to, well, we'll use Geo, we won't pick on him, but if he was to hijack one of my trades, I wanted to squelch him. He can post at will in any of my trades, but unbeknownst to him, he doesn't know that he's squelched, right? So obviously nobody else will see those. I wouldn't see those. And so it's a great way to kind of use a blocking feature. And then up here, you can see squelches. And so if you wanted to navigate to your personal squelches, right, you can also add them here, but there's also a way to remove them. So if you've come to parlay jokingly in terms with your enemies, if you will, you can certainly do that here. So again, thank you, Teebling, for this. I think that was something that was critical on top of the trust endorsement as well.
Yeah, well, we were going mad, like me and the mods. So that's Billy and Rage Noob and Bear Dozer and Stormlash as well. We were just going crazy because we were getting, like 20 reports a day at one point. People were really, really getting angry with each other in these listings, and we had to do something about it. So we thought that kind of the best thing moving forward would be like auto moderation, where not in the modern sense of like a bot, but more like just like users have a bit of autonomy and they can moderate their own posts, right? So introduce the Squelch thing. It's like a shadow ban, like you mentioned and explained. And now it also hides their listings in the marketplace. So if you're seeing their junk every single day, like you can just squelch them and their stuff will disappear. So that helps bring the reports down significantly because almost every single conflict or whatever can be resolved straight away by the person who owns the listing. They just squelch them. That's it.
I love it. All right. So there's one more feature before we shift in kind of our next section. So we are going to search in a different type of way. So if you do go up here into About, you can see a members list. And so this is obviously the entirety. You can kind of see over the history of time when people joined, obviously some statistics about them. But specifically, what's cool now is you can search by BattleNet ID. So if you think about whether it's finding groups to play with, like looking for groups or power leveling or magic finding, or whether it's specifically for trades. Obviously, now in the BNet game, it's a little bit more of a complex whisper. It's not like the historicals where it was by account. It's obviously mostly by your BNet ID. But if we use right arm as an example, oops, I think I did the wrong number. Sec.
Show off here is it's like a
There we go.
BattleNet search. So everybody has their BattleNet ID registered if they want to set up trades quickly. But a lot of people finding that they're also doing a lot of trading in game, right? They're not using Tradery, they're not using D2IO. They're actually just straight up putting lobbies up and waiting in the lobby and doing trading that way. But they might have had a listing on the site and they still want to submit the data for what it sold for, but they can't find the person to give the trust to because they don't know what their D2IO username was. So we put in this BattleNet search and you just put in their BattleNet ID from the in-game and it comes up with their username. So that was another highly requested feature.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was butchering that example name, so that's a typo on my part. However, fortunately, I have padlocked myself. So do you want to kind of explain what that is? I think it's a neat feature that you added, just to what the green padlock represents.
Yeah. So as you all know, like D2 Resurrected doesn't have an official API. Like Blizzard never made it. I've asked them about it so many times and never got any responses. They're not interested in making an API, but you can still kind of like connect to BattleNet's network as like a main thing. So I put this extension in where you can link your BattleNet account to your D2IO account, and that lets you log in with your BattleNet instead of with your username or password. So you've got like a bit of a quicker way to get logged in. And it also proves, it proves that you own that Battle.net account as well, which is an extra signal for trust, right? You're thinking, okay, the green padlock, he's verified his Battle.net account, he's accountable for what he's, for what he's doing with his trading behavior and stuff. So he's more trustworthy as a result. So that was the idea behind that.
Very cool. And yeah, just quick little features too. If you notice here, if I click copied ID. So again, very easy, one click, you can message the person in game. You can go to Discord and locate them or friend the person. So a nice, again, to be expected with Teebling and his beautiful property here. Very awesome quality of life features. So we're closing out the live section. We're going to go through a couple more things. We'll end with the D-Clone tracker, and then get ready, everybody, all you lovely 25 viewers in here, because we are going to open up a queue for active questions. And I do want you to have some fun with Mr. Teebling. He actively solicited it on the front page, so he's ready to go through the gauntlet. Especially, I'm calling out you, Lockie, and Mr. Nefarious. I expect some fun questions from you both. So I had mentioned a little bit of a teaser that, very simple, but, obviously part of the database obviously had D2 needed to be updated with 2.4 kind of areas. And so if we go into the database, just for example, and you look at areas, again, by sorting, you can kind of sort some interesting things. But more specifically, if I wanted to see, hey, what's updated for 2.4, boom. You can see here, obviously, a lot of these, mostly as areas, it's about the 85 levels. I think if my math was correct, if I remember, there was about 16 new levels that have been updated to 85, very prominently in Act 3, some of the Act 5, kind of Abaddon and others, and Icy Cellar, etc. So if you wanted to make sure that 2.4 was updated, obviously, you could do the same thing here. Same goes for rune words, right? So there's only been a couple, but if you wanted to, again, look at miscellaneous and say, hey, very quickly, what are the new 2.4 rune words? What's been updated? Most of these are obviously new. Something like an Insight and an Infinity are here, right? Because Insight, the big thing now, as you can see, is that it can be leveraged in bows, which I think a lot of people are excited about, to leverage the Act 1 Rogue Merc versus the Act 2. And then Infinity, right? The big thing here is going into Amazon Spears. So Offend and Impales on a lot of good stuff there. So just wanted to show a couple of these off. And same with sets. I think the thing for sets, which is really helpful to look at more specifically, is sets can now be upped, right? So I think that's like one of the big things here. So if I spell this correctly, let's see. Oh, I'm not. Okay, I'm just gonna go up here and type it, because of course I'm typing too fast, but you can still get there this way because I can't clearly type. So you'll see here, right? Kudos to Teebs and his crew, all the database contributors. So, hey, now you can see if you update this to Aspired Helm from a Winged Helm, right? What's the defense? And then, of course, here they quickly link out the recipe for you to do so. So, super, super cool that you guys updated this stuff. So, thank you for that, Teebling and group.
Yeah, no worries. That was actually Keegan's work. He submitted all the data for this, along with a lot of the database as well. And we will be updating 2.4 data for skills as well, thanks to Stormlash. Stormlash has just finished collating all of the data in a wonderfully complicated spreadsheet that I will have the pleasure of processing in a week or two's time. So we'll have 2.4 data for skills. That's the only thing that's missing right now. Everything else is done, like the set item full bonuses, the additional room words and the modification to existing room words, areas, all that's up to date on the database. And also, if you go to some items and they have different data from what they have now in 2.4 and 2.3, you can switch between the two. Like there's a little tab, so you can see what it was in 2.3 and going forward. Want to keep that synced with the game so that people can also use the database to see what previous game versions stats were.
There we go. So I know one thing you wanted me to show, make sure I highlight it, because it's kind of some of the fun part of the community and some of the nature. So you can see, Billy Mays, who's super helpful. Here, one of the sources I personally use often, I think many do, is here sticky at the top in a very kind of neat allocated way, is a lot of different guides. And so if you want to look at quick calculators, you want to kind of source out to third-party kind of information, you have a lot here. And I think in particular, you wanted me to kind of pull this up because I think there were really two funny ones here you wanted to talk through. The first one, dropped my grief, stolen my farewell to BNet. And then also, excuse my language, I farmed for 2 fucking weeks for this shit looking enigma, and we'll pull those up in a second. But yeah, talk to me a little bit about this one. I think you said that this was something that really just emulated what you hoped for in the community. But you want to kind of give some background on this and what happened?
Yeah, so it was like the super early days of trading, and a lot of people getting scammed, right? Falling for these like classic um, scamming tricks that have been around for 20 years that were in Legacy, and made it into Resurrected. Billy did a good topic on that, by the way. He did one for like top 10 scams in D2 Resurrected. But anyway, I digress. So this guy came on the forums and he's like, "Oh my god, I dropped my grief on the ground and then this guy stole it. I'm so mad, like I'm going to quit the game right now, you know." And he made this really impassioned sort of post on the forums, and you could feel the pain. Billy, he messages me and he says, "Oh, why don't we try and like get his grief again? Why don't we just ask everybody if they wanted to donate, like chip in a rune here or there, and maybe we can like make one for him and give it back to him." And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's see how it goes, see how generous people actually are. And I think it was within like 6 hours or something like that. We'd had all these people who donated, and someone donated like the high rune as well, which is nuts. And yeah, and then we messaged him. We said, "Look, we've got your grief. Like we made one for you. You just have to come online." And I think he was offline for 16 hours, and everyone was in the thread. There was like, "Oh, where is he? Like, has he logged off? Has he quit the game? Like, is his computer in like a trash can somewhere?" And then this guy, Bright was his name. That's it. Bright comes on and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. You guys are the best. Blah blah blah." And yeah, it was just kind of like a cool story, a bit of an act of kindness on, some of the forum members came to help him and stuff, and it was nice. And then we had nothing but like, "Oh, somebody stole my X topics." Like it was like all over the forums, people like, "Oh, someone stole my like Stone of Jordan," or "Somebody stole my Enigma. Like, can you guys donate it back?"
Yeah, you were definitely gonna have the trolls trying to get some free handouts. Welcome to the freeloading D2 community. We love you. But no,
yeah, it was
but
funny.
that's the point, right? Like, look, I'm not gonna. I know I'm gonna make a statement here and I'll get yelled at. I mean, it's hard to compare and contrast the Blizzard forums. I'm very open about this. I don't mind. It's a toxic kind of wasteland. Obviously, you got a lot of gaslighting, a lot of trolls. Everyone's opinionated, argumentative in there. Not that you don't get that in any forum. Obviously, it still happens here. You see it, but I just think it's more of a kosher kind of passive platform, right? People respect each other here. They're open to opinions, and that's why I spend far more intimate time, candidly, in the D2IO forums than I do in Blizzards, right? I'm not suggesting on this stream that people should kind of jettison here. Obviously, it's always open to your own personal preference on where you want to spend time and kind of engage with the community. But yeah, I just find that the Blizzard forums are always a carousel of fun. So I think people would have a much more pleasant experience here. That's just my own personal endorsement.
Thanks for the recommendation. I mean, we have plenty of our own trolls as well.
Yeah.
Um, I'd also give a shout out to Pure Diablo. They have a quite a good forum community. Some really active people like looking after the place, like Knock and Rush and stuff. So purediablo.com is another great forum. And I lurk on the general forums as well for Blizzard, like the official Blizzard ones. And there's some hidden gems in there. Like you do, because of just the sheer mass of people that are on that place. You do actually get really interesting discussions come up every now and again.
Oh,
Um,
100%. And
but
yeah,
yeah,
you said it. Pure Diablo, yeah, it's a great destination. Obviously, everybody knows Max Roll, right? That's more about less forums, just more informational kind of acquisition, their planning tool and such, right? But to your point, don't worry, Lockie. So we're getting some fun chatter. My buddy Lockie down from Australia. I'll get you on screen. I think people will be fascinated with your accent. So I'm clearly starting with the European king across the pond. Teebling will get you on your Aussie accent. That'll give me my MO. I'm just gonna go international, worldwide. So to close this out, let's get to the D-Clone tracker. I would think by now that most tuning in have likely been here. They've come to the site. They have a pretty kind of basic understanding of what it is. So just by a quick review, there was a major modification to the Diablo clone mechanic. So for those, for like most of us that played Lord of Destruction, it was mainly based off of IP. So a lot in the ecosystem, guys like Anaconda and Dizzo, who ran the D2R kind of noob house hunting discords, right? There were ways to backdoor rotating non-ladder IPs into ladder IPs, and it was much easier to simultaneously spawn softcore and hardcore just based off the historical mechanics. But this is very, very different here, right? For most people who have caught up with this, essentially now it's based off of a regional kind of aggregate umbrella database. And they are also, as you can see here now, also classifying this by region, ladder, non-ladder, softcore, hardcore as well. And so what that means is instead of having that just that simple IP that can kind of multi-spawn across both softcore and hardcore, that has now been gated and restricted. And so the ability for you to kind of obviously get a little creative and quirky with trying to backdoor IPs and rotations, that definitely that door has shut. But the beauty of it is that if you simply do, as you can see here at the top in game, if you were to type /Uber Diablo, it will effectively give you one of 6 messages that is auto tracked and spawned for declone, and so it's very easy to track that. But the problem was, to Teebling's point of solving for this, is how can we create kind of a centralized repository tracker for everybody to obviously benefit? And so that's exactly what you're seeing here. You will notice the same kind of filtering methodology. If you wanted to come in here, again, we're just going to do an example, but I can easily come in here in real time. If I'm on America's non-ladder and I see that the progress tracker has updated from 1 to these obviously 6 messages, it's very easy. I can come in here and click update progress level. And in doing so, you would see that reflected here. So you can kind of see the manual nature of it. And it's quite simple for now. Obviously, I'm going to give Teebling some time to talk about his API and future partnership developments. But the other cool thing that he did here is twofold. One, if you wanted to list a Stone of Jordan, so obviously if you wanted to organize walks with groups, he has essentially parsed out all of the SOJ trades that are in the wild. So obviously these are directly associated. You still have to sell probably upwards of 75 to 125 Sojas to make declone spawn. And so this is a cool way for both selling and buying that you could easily navigate deep link directly into acquiring those SOJs. And at the same time with fine games. So I'm going to do an example here, but if it's 5 out of 6, obviously they're not here. It's an example, but I know that Declone is about to pop. There are those that are offering services. So there are smiters that are, Declone or Pandemonium events. And so obviously in those specific examples, right, when ladder gets live, for example, you can find those services. If you aren't strong enough to kill Declone, someone would more than happily help you. But Teebling, obviously I covered a little bit on this, but anything that I missed, things you wanted to punctuate, and then, feel free to pivot into the API that you're working on.
Yeah, sure. So this is Snorky's idea. He's a member on the forum, and he contacted me like 3 days before I was going to release the last patch, and he's like, please, 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 can you make something for Declone? Just like anything, like just to make it a tiny bit easier for us to get at it. And I discussed it before with people and looked at some ideas, and looking at Blizzard's blue post, can't speak English today. They wanted to make it more accessible, and like accessibility has been like a big like key theme running throughout all of D2 Resurrected, right? And they wanted to make Declone a little bit less obtuse, a little bit more, just easy to get. As you said, like with all the crazy like IP hopping and multi-boxing and stuff, like it was this sort of dark, mysterious world, and not a lot of people ever saw Declone walking. So in that same kind of spirit, in the same thread, I wanted to kind of build something that would help people maybe see him. Excuse me. So yeah, it just came up with this idea, like what if everyone just reports it, they open up their game, the type /Diablo, and they put it in the site, and then everyone can see it. So that was kind of like the basic idea. Wasn't expecting it to get a lot of interest, but then just again like this huge amount of traffic poured in, because I don't think anyone else had attempted to do something like it. So it was the only thing there. It's been great. It's been like over 10,000 reports, and a lot of people have seen Diablo Clone walk now, thanks to the tool, and other discords like D-Clone Hunters as well. By the way, pet peeve. So I don't know why Blizzard called it Uber Diablo, because to my knowledge anyway, or with the people that I talked to D2 about, everyone's been calling it Diablo Clone for years and years and years, and there was always that distinction, and that Uber Diablo is the pandemonium Diablo that you see in Tristram, right? So I don't know why they called it Uber Diablo, but that's what it is, and that's like the slash command and everything. Yeah, for me it'll always be Diablo Clone, just to like avoid confusion. I guess yeah, and then most recently opened the API up, right? So I don't really have a lot of time on my hands. I have a real life and a job and stuff. Luckily, I'm fortunate enough to have even some time to spend on hobbies like this. But I don't have enough time, and people are requesting loads of stuff. They were like, "Oh, can we get notifications? Can I make a bot for this? Like, is there any way we can automate it?" So up till now, most of the code has been closed source, but I thought this time it would actually be just more beneficial to people if I open up the data, like the raw data. So yeah, people have already built like Discord bots for it. So if you want to get notifications when you get decline progress in like a specific mode, there's a Discord bot for it. People have made like beepers, just like simple beepers with Python. Some people have written like in-game overlays with C#. Like, it's so cool. All these and this is within like 5 hours of releasing the API. People are already publishing what they made with it. So yeah, that was nice. I even got contacted by these two guys in Germany, and they were like, "Oh, can we use this for our university project?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, dude." And anything else you need from me, let me know. So yeah, it was cool. API was a success, and should help people, see D-Clone even more now. So I was very happy with it.
Yeah. Obviously, this is beyond my competency level. Obviously, I'm technical enough to understand what you're accomplishing with the APIs, and I know that you've been sharing with me personally some of the outreach and the feedback, and obviously some of the connections that we've been talking about for Discord automation and some bidirectional surplus creating, where they can kind of add value to the tracker themselves and also for their own communities in the Discord. So again, kudos to you and the team for just deploying this so quickly. Definitely, hopefully, will be a mainstay. And yeah, API is huge. API is huge. So, all right, everybody, we are officially closing the section of the D2IO review. Obviously, we went through a lot of great stuff today. But now, without further ado, and really, I think what everybody's been waiting for is we are excited to talk about the live Q&A. So, what I am going to personally do for those that are here that are live that want to ask questions, I'm going to officially open a queue, which I just did. You'll see in the chat, all you have to do is add exclamation join and then your question. I will try to monitor any questions that come through for those that don't use this feature, but would definitely encourage the exclamation join and the question space question, as it gives me an easier way to kind of filter through these. So we actually do have one from Mr. Bob. I'll start there. So he asked, does anyone have an invite to the D-Clone Hunters Discord that was mentioned? Yes, I can get that for you, Mr. Bob. I don't know if somebody watching can link it in here. Anybody that's in Dizzo's or Landon's Discord, or maybe Teebling can, but we will definitely get that over to you. But yeah, Dizzo and Anaconda, where he goes by Landon, they historically were partners. They ran FG Noob's House was their Discord name, and then they started to branch out into a new Discord, pretty much a mirrored, called D2R Hunters. And Teebling, I got them connected with those guys the other day because they're also trying to build a new framework and automated bot. So thank you for doing that. All right, so we got.
Yeah, I'm just gonna link the invite down here in the chat, guys.
Cool, thank you. So I think I have to permit you actually.
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool Discord. It's just people looking for D-Clone. That's it. They just chat to each other, and keep up to date with the tracker. The tracker's linked there a lot. Yeah, kind of cool that they've been doing this since Legacy, and like with the people behind, automating the whole thing, and really impressive, to be honest, to have that kind of that longevity and just be helping people the whole time. Very, very cool, and cool Discord. Definitely join it.
100%. All right, so we got another one from Sly. What type of analytics do you use on the website?
So I use Google Analytics, the most like unintrusive one. So I don't collect data about demographics or age or anything like that. It's just like standard cookie analytics. And that lets me see things like how many people are online all the time. So that's kind of cool. Like I have a big map of the world, and that's been really interesting because recently a lot of the traffic to the D Clone tracker has been from Korea. So apparently Korea, they have this massive D2 scene, and I don't know anything about it, but people in Korea are really, really mad for D2. They love it. So yeah, that's nice being able to see kind of like the flow that people take as well. Like they might land on one page and then it will show me where they click through to next. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, like I need to make that button a bit more obvious so that I get people visiting X page or whatever. Um, yeah, so it's Google Analytics. I might like switch to like Twilio segment or something like that. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's Google.
Very cool. So next up, we got Man in the Canoe. So of the 70K registered users, how many do you think are real people and active users?
Also, all the registrations that are counted, except for the 250 listed bots, are actually like real registrations. Uh, so I do a purge every now and again to remove basically like spammers, people who've come on to like spam links or like bots that come on to spam links. I think the number of like non-human like registrations might be higher because people are building stuff with the API now and they're hitting the site with curl and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, and I think as I mentioned at the beginning, I think maybe only like 10 or 20K are actually like active. The huge vast majority of people signed up when the game launched, and then went inactive after about a month. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and to your point, I think that's what's going to be interesting. I think you and I have been talking obviously over the last month, kind of preparing for some of this, and yeah, it's like before 2.4 launched. I think if I mean I'm on your site pretty often. I think it was averaging maybe pre 2.4, more or less, 200 to 400 active, and again at different times of the day that will fluctuate based off of regions. But yeah, I think when 2.4 launched, it quickly ascended up to 1,000, and then I think really now as we're encroaching ladder, it's kind of been averaging closer to 2,000. And to your point, I think there's been a lot of the kind of Korean footprint coming in for like the D-Clone tracking page. But yeah, look, me like many, right? I was super excited, but then with all the server challenges and a lot of obviously the experience of the gameplay in general, I stopped playing candidly for like 4 to 5 months because I just wanted to wait for ladder. That was that joking 300 plus day kind of painful runway that we all had to experience. So yeah, I'm eager to see what comes of ladder officially, Teebs. But yeah, hopefully your servers, as you joked, can kind of can stay up with some uptime. But I know that you put a lot into that. Um,
Hopefully it goes okay. I mean, we'll see.
100%.
It's always a gamble because I can't simulate real traffic, you see. So when it does come crashing down, like I have to hotfix stuff sometimes, and yeah, gets interesting.
So we got another question from Sly. Interesting. I like this one. Would you create a currency for the website? I'm guessing he's kind of joining this to obviously Forum Gold with D2 JSP. And so keep me honest, Sly. If I was wrong, feel free to chime in. But yeah, have you thought about that, Teebs?
Yeah, certainly have thought about it. Actually, if you inspect the code of the header and some parts of the site, I think there's some old code there that I just commented out. And I actually intended to have a currency there, but just for cosmetic stuff to build revenue for the site. But then I actually stopped that idea because Stormlast was like, aren't people going to like confuse that with Forum Gold and think this is an RMT site, which is not. So I scrapped all that together. Um, when I started the site, I also didn't want it to have a sort of a currency. I just wanted it to be a bartering marketplace to distinguish it from JSP. because JSP is an excellent, excellent website, by the way, and you don't have to buy forum gold to trade on JSP. You can barter just like you do on D2IO. It's a really, really fantastic place. But there was a lot of anti-JSP sentiment because people don't know that. And so I wanted to build a place for people where they felt there was like absolutely no influence of real money going into the game, and just to kind of keep it fun, keep it non-RNT, and kind of keep credit cards out of it. Even though you can do trading on D2JSP without that, people still wanted a space that felt a little bit different. So yeah, I've had interesting chats with other people as well, other devs I know. Like a lot of people are interested in kind of like cryptocurrency and building tokens and stuff for it, which is interesting. But really, at the end of the day, like how does that separate itself from forum gold, which is already a really, really great currency? It's like super liquid. You can use it in tons of games and stuff. So yeah, short answer is no. I will not ever be introducing any kind of currency or fungible thing for Diablo 2.io. Definitely not.
So I actually have a one from Lucky Strike or Lucky Ace. I think you know her from the forums, Teebling. She's been doing all of the awesome Barb guides. Very simple one actually. She was curious how you and I met. I guess I can kind of maybe take this one and we'll go from there. I actually was trying to funny. I was like thinking back. I'm like, oh, how did we meet? But yeah, I mean, I think really it was Ket's Discord Sanctuary, right? So it was obviously a majorly coming up and ascending Discord. I think like we all kind of know, they take more of a purist approach in their Discord, right? Not real money currency, not the joking fungibles or the JSP, right? Because they want to advocate for legitimate play, not botting, not JSP, and trying to kind of bring back the in-game trading mechanism. And obviously, concurrently with what you were building and scoping with Diablo 2.io, that's where I personally heard of it. I saw you typing in. I saw you kind of highlighting components of the site. I think I was in the early 400s when I joined, or maybe just south of that. So I wasn't like uber early, but early enough when you consider that the base is now 73,000. But yeah, look, I for me, Lucky, if you're watching the VOD, I think you're going to. Yeah, that's how I remember meeting, and just kicked it off, and we hit off what he was building, and kind of had a mutual respect. But I don't know, is my memory on? What do you recall? Maybe it wasn't as pleasant as I recall.
It was just that, I think. Just that on Ketri's Discord there. His Discord's called Sanctuary, by the way. He's a really, really nice bloke. He helped me get a lot of exposure early on, so I just want to give him a shout out. And the Discord are a really friendly bunch of guys. And they connected me in theory, so there you go.
Yeah, I actually just keystroked it in. So the exclamation Discord, if you want a direct link there, you can get yourself there and take part in the community. And yeah, religious, look, a lot of people who can't get past Rakanishu or Joe, aka Venue in Act 4, not much we can help you with, pal, especially on hardcore. Godspeed. So we got another one from Man in the Canoe. He's curious if you're still having SEO issues. He said, as a person searching for stuff, I'm seeing trash websites in the top result of the organic link. So yeah, you want to talk a little bit about that? And actually, Sly, who's in here, obviously we got the three of us connected. But yeah, what kind of happened with that, and kind of what was your experience? Obviously, I know it's a bit scary and frustrating as a site owner and a key traffic driver on a specific query. But yeah, any updates on that for the crew?
Yeah, well, I mean, what is there to explain, really? I put an ads campaign up, and one of my top URLs just disappeared from the Google index. So I don't know what happened, really. I immediately disabled everything and hasn't recovered yet. But it's not a big concern for me, really, because a lot of people came for the D-Clone tracker, right? That was sort of like a really nice surprise. I thought the site was going to be dead because no one would be able to find it anymore. But then the D-Clone tracker kicked off, and so I got a lot of traffic. So yeah, to answer your question, still unresolved, still looking at it. See what we can do.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that, and thank you, Man in the Canoe. So we don't have any current active questions. I figured, hey, let's do a couple more, and then I think we can bring this to a close. But yeah, I think one thing that I've been thinking about, Teebling, love to hear you talk about, is what would you have done differently with D2IO? I'm sure you didn't necessarily, I think you used your example, right? The 4K prior website, 4K members. Obviously, this is a different echelon. So, yeah, what did you expect? And now looking outside and looking in and reviewing, what would you have done differently with D2IO?
Well, I would have definitely definitely tried to code it a little bit better, um, with kind of like scalability in mind. That would have saved me a lot of pain and stress, and a lot of tears. I can assure you that. Um, so I kind of wish I'd coded it in a different way. Maybe done what most modern web devs do, with all JavaScript sites or something like that. Maybe a NoSQL database instead of the SQL database that it runs on now. So technically, there's loads of things I would have done differently, but at the same time, I would never have found out about those things had I not tried this first. Um, so yeah, technically there was that. I think that in terms of like growth, I think that it was a mistake not to try and partner with streamers and stuff. I really underestimated like how much influence streamers would have um, across the community, and then so I really should have like kind of got in touch with those guys and tried to get my site's name out there a little bit earlier on. Um, Gosh, what else would I do? Uh, I would have paid my hosting bills on time if the site didn't go down. I don't know. There's so many mistakes I made making this thing, but they're all mistakes I've learned from. So it's been great. I've learned so much stuff making this site. Um, I've had the help of some really, really smart people who do this for a living. They actually do this professionally. Um, and they were able to help me find issues with my own code and basically teach me a lot about server management, about programming, a lot about querying databases in an optimal way. So very, very thankful to have had those people who stepped up to help me.
Amazing. Well, I guess maybe kind of in a similar vein to close it off. What's next on the roadmap? Obviously, you've had a major release recently with a ton of updates that had a lot of depth to it. Obviously, you kind of already teased a little bit about the declone stuff. And there's been a lot of questions in the forums of like, oh, are you going to build a holy grail tracker or kind of other elements? Obviously, those are other resources in the wild, but you might not have the answer immediately. And obviously, the site is already end to end pretty buttoned up, and it's pretty dense and rich already. But yeah, kind of anything that I don't know people might want to hear from, or kind of quirky things that you've been kind of top of mind about.
Yeah, I did think about a Holy Grail tracker for a while. I still think it would be a pretty cool thing to build, but it's been built elsewhere already. There's already amazing Holy Grail trackers out there, and from the beginning, I've tried to make the site about adding value for the community. So that I try not to duplicate things. So I try not to uh, do the same things that other people have done and just put a different skin on it. So that's why there's no drop calculator on my site, because Philopson and Maxroll do it so much better. That's why there's no guide section or like a proper um, uh, fully written guide section on my site, because websites like Pure Diablo and Maxroll already do it and they do an excellent job of it. Um, you know, so I sort of try and avoid those things, and Holy Grail tracker falls into that realm now for me. There's a good tracker on Maxroll actually itself, and also another one which is super bare bones but also very clean and minimal and nice. I can't recall the name of it right now, but if you search Holy Grail tracker in Google, you'll find it. Um, as for the future of the site, well, it's really just now about maintaining it and keeping it stable in the long term. It's a site I want to be around in, like 5, 10 years time, when we get Diablo 2 resurrected. It's a site that I think has fulfilled a lot of my own personal ambitions now, for what I wanted to build for the community. It's managed to stay relevant and, add a lot of value to people. So it's kind of just about, yeah, just stable fixing it, making sure that it keeps on running optimally. There's other things in my life that I want to move on to now. I've made a lot of huge personal sacrifices developing this site. Sometimes working 16-hour days just to try and stay on top of things. And I don't get any heads up from Blizzard, by the way, guys. So like when they announce stuff, like I have as much time as you do to actually build it. So it's been rather stressful at times. Managing everyone's expectations and keeping the site going. So it's something that I will be stepping away from in terms of building grand new features. One thing that may excite you guys, though, on a good note, is that I'm thinking about building an API for the price checker tool, because I really don't think that I ever fully reached the potential for all of that data. The data's there, but like I just don't have enough time to build cool things with it. But I think that other people really will, just like they did with the D-Clone tracker. I released the raw data, and within 5 hours, people were building things, and that's the coolest thing in the world, is to know that that data is helping people create stuff and build. So that's something I'm thinking about doing now, is releasing an API for the price check tool, so that other websites, widgets, apps, what have you, can make use of that data source.
That was super thorough, man. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. Yeah, shame on you, Blizzard. Come on, Diablo 2 IO. It's in the running here. Let's get some backdoor information to my boy Teebling here. But look, I think yeah, look, yeah, you got a comment from Mr. Bob. Love the tracker. Maybe some desktop notifications. Thanks, Canoe. Aesthetically best in class. Look, I think I'm speaking for myself in the community, but look, in closing, Teebling, genuine thank you for me and the community for everything you've built. This truly is best in class. It had a huge void and gap in the market. We talked about it in the first stream, the accuracy of information and the discrepancies across sources, right defenses, right skill calculus, all these different mechanics that you guys have really pulled together in the community. Look, it's just been a great place for people to fraternize with camaraderie and kind of build relationships and partnerships. So again, thank you from the community, but more importantly, Teebling, thank you so much for allowing me to do this with you for a second time. Like you kind of joked, right? I'm also a small time streamer up and coming, right? In real life responsibilities, kids, and it obviously brings me joy and fulfillment to be able to do this thing with you. And I know you feel the same. So I'm definitely in debt to you to allowing me to have this type of discussion, man. I genuinely appreciate it. So with that, again, thank you, and let me know if there's any closing remarks, man.
Yeah, I just want to shout out a couple of people really, because this I know this interview and stuff is like focused on me, but the site has really been a crowdsourced effort, from so many different individuals. First of all, I just want to thank my girlfriend Jenny for just like putting up with all the shit while I've been building the site, and so I really appreciate you for that. I want to thank the moderators as well. So Billy Mazid, Enraged Noob, excuse me, not Engaged Noob. I don't know, he might be engaged. Stormlash, Keegan, Snorky, all you guys are just amazing, and thank you for all of your contributions along the way, and for all of your help and assistance, whether that's been with data or dealing with moderators, or just being like just good role models for the community and stuff. And yeah, so like thanks everyone. It's been really fun ride, and thank you Theory as well for hosting me here on your stream. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again, and really enjoyed the opportunity to talk to some of your viewers as well. So thanks everybody for joining today.
100% everybody. And, again, call to action. If you haven't seen or experienced Diablo 2 IO, go. It's easy to sign up, start engaging with the community. A heartfelt thank you to all the active viewers who are still with us today, for all the followers that joined up today and also those previously. It really means the world to me. Every little bit honestly helps, especially Shady, Shadow, Dan, all those guys that have helped with the stream. And just as a reminder, so I'm going to be live Thursday. I'm going to be grinding ladder, doing the 6+ to 7 hour stream. Hopefully we don't die in hardcore. Our group usually makes it pretty successfully. We're usually first or second to Hell Bail with some healthy competition. So for those that want to tune in, I'll be live here on the stream, going probably 30 to 45 minutes early ahead of the 7 Central launch time. So I hopefully will see a lot of you guys then. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you, Teebling.
Cheers, guys.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
See you guys.